in place, so if I could, and hopefully the other candidates have left the room, but we have District 1, and we have 3 of the 4 candidates that are up this evening. We have Kirk Arnold, Mick Lookabill, Mark Reichert, and then Rex Wilson is not able to join us. Unless Rex is here, if you are here, we'd have you come up, but we don't see him, so we will go with the 3 candidates that are here, and we're going to run this one very similar to how we did the last one. They're going to start with a 2-minute opening statement, and then we'll get into our question round where they get 90 seconds. So, Kirk, you get to start off with your opening statement.
Well, I don't know if everybody can see me. I'm pretty short. But anyway, 4 years ago I ran for commissioner. And I found out in the last 4 years what it really takes. It takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication. Keeping in mind, whatever we do, we're going to encumber the future, whether it's taxes or future detention center. The reason I'm running is I think that I can make a difference. It's time for a change. Myself, as you can tell by my resume, I grew up in Gering, graduated from high school here. Had 2 businesses on Main Street, started from scratch with service industry and a retail, which is Gabe's Barbecue. And I appreciate the community. I came back here, got remarried to my lovely wife, who incidentally I did leave her in Florida. I came back for one night tonight, because last year I missed it. Anyway, I'll be leaving in the morning at 6 a.m. to go back to Florida, because we always go down there for 3 weeks. Anyway, I've been very fortunate to live in the community. I grew up here. I came back in 1995, and hence I'm still here. And I think I know what it takes to be a commissioner. I've watched them for 4 years. So it's a daunting task. It really is, and you have to really be aware of what you're doing for the future and the current time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kirk. Now, Mick Lookabill, your opening statement.
Well, I've lived in the Panhandle my whole life. I was born and raised in this area. I'm an active farmer. We run a farming operation with the local beans, and corn, and we also run alfalfa cattle. We run small feedlots. We're pretty well entrenched in this area. We basically cover an area from Highland Road from Scottsbluff to the Morrill County line north up to Sioux County. We have multiple farms in that area, and so we do know the county's equipment, services, stuff where they try to get around and everything, and they do a pretty good job, but I think there's a lot of improvement on that. But we've lived here, me and my son, we run our farming operation. My wife helps out as well, and I think that it's time to look at this. I've been in the Scottsbluff County Planning Commission for 15 years. So most of the rules and regulations that are used in the county is basically, we went through that about 5 years into my stay with the Planning Commission, and we went through all the different rules and regulations and got them into line. So it's all designed for an ag area. That's kind of what we've set it up for. So I've also owned Pathfinder Irrigations Board, been there for 20 years. I've just entrenched in the area pretty strong, and I do understand it quite well, but I'll let it go at that.
Okay. Thank you, Mick. Now, Mark Reichert, your opening comments.
My name's Mark Reichert. I'm running for re-election of Scottsbluff County Commissioner District 1. 4 years ago, when I ran for this position, I didn't realize how tough it was going to be. But it's a lot harder than people realize. There's a lot of budgets that we pull our hair out trying to find out ways to get it paid for. And we've done a good job of that. I mean, my fellow commissioners, they're a good bunch of people. They're nice to work with, and we've done a good job, I think, of paying all the bills. But there's always trouble. There's always the mandates that we have to pay, and people don't realize that commissioners don't have the right to raise taxes. I mean, we get blamed for it for some reason, but we don't raise the taxes. We pay the bills. That's what our job is. So I see my 2 minutes is about up, but...
You've still got a minute.
Oh, okay.
But if you want to be up here...
But anyway, I'd like to appreciate your vote on come May 15th.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, our first question is going to Mick, and this question is, it's property taxes. No, there's more to it than that. We all know that our property taxes are high. Okay. How would you balance the need to provide the services that the county provides while proposing to lower property taxes?
Well, again, I live in the area. I've dealt with this for a long time. You really, just like Mark was saying, there's so many state mandates and federal mandates that you have a hard time saying, okay, I'll just automatically cut funding. Well, it's kind of hard to do that because you got good people working for this county, and you need to pay them as well. But what I think you can do is how you manage it. You direct people in a certain direction. If it isn't working, change it. I've run my own farming operation for 37 years. I've grown from almost nothing to a fairly good-sized operation, and it just management does it. As you see problems in the county, and I see the county's problems as far as the road department. There's a lot of things that could be changed to help out in the expenditure side of it. It's just one of those things that you live out here, you'll understand it, but I think in time, by just directing different ways of doing it, maybe because of my experience of a farming operation and in some of the boards I've sat on, that how to buy products and how to operate different entities. I think there are some ways to change it, but you can't just. No one made us king. We can't just say automatically we're going to cut everything. You're going to have to do a little at a time and hope you keep it down, because we went in our operation in 2015 or 2005 to now. It's raised. The amount of taxes that we pay is almost tripled. So it's costing the agriculture a lot of money to operate this, and it's getting harder for agriculture to survive in this environment. I guess I'm out of time. I better quit. I'd be here all day.
Okay, thank you. Now, Mark, your response.
That's just it. We got to manage our money the best we can, and I think we've been doing that. But there's always room for improvement. I mean, there's new, innovative ways of doing things. There's computer technology now that we use, and we're doing that. And but we need to keep on it. What was the rest of that question?
It was basically, how would you balance the need for providing needed services from the county with also the need for reducing property taxes?
Well, that's tough. I mean, taxes are set by the state, and the valuations are the valuations. And the only thing we can do is cut on our services if we need to. We don't want to do that because we do provide a lot of services that people would like to continue. But when we run out of money, those services may have to be cut. That's all I can say.
Okay. Okay, Kirk?
Well, first of all, I have a property in Colorado, and I can tell you that one of the biggest drains on taxes is schools. And I was in Florida. I asked a principal friend of mine. She said they give their kids $17,000 per student. And, of course, their revenue comes from the fun things you do in Florida. And so it's a different situation. One thing that really puzzled me was how can the evaluations keep going up and our taxes keep going up? We have more nicer homes, more value in them, but our taxes keep going up. I propose a modified zero balance budget. What that means is when you spend money, you better know what you want to spend it on. Because, I'll give you an example, technology, we went from 5 people to 3 people in my office because of technology. So I know that that can be part of it. I also know that, to set out there and say to lower taxes, I don't know if we can do that. But what we can do is watch what we do with the money. And I really believe that as a commissioner, you have a responsibility for the future. And no one wants any higher taxes in any sense of the word. I believe there's some alternatives that I'll talk about later, perhaps. Right now, property tax seems to be the big issue. And we don't like paying them, but I've lived here. Give you an example. $1 million home in Colorado, the tax is about $4,500. Here they're $20,000. Now, if you were going to sell your home, take advantage of the exemption on your home, or if you wanted to buy a like home when you come to Nebraska, who would sell a home for $500,000 and pay 5 times the taxes here? So we really need to look at that really strongly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kirk. And now we're going to the next question. We will start with Mark. And it's kind of a follow-up question to the first one. But what services that the county provides could possibly be cut back or eliminated to help reduce property taxes? So is there anything specifically that you see the county doing now that could be cut back or eliminated?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to say we're going to cut anything, because we're not going to cut anything. I'm just saying if the time comes when we don't have the money, that services will have to be cut. But right now, no, I don't want to cut any services.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Kirk, your question?
I had an opportunity to look at the budget. One of the big drains on us is the detention center. And I see the news media, and Joe has said that we may have to we've already going to move some people down the ladder instead of up the ladder, so we can cover the cost for some additional, staffing. But anyway, one thing that really bothered me is the detention center. What are we going to do if there's a medical emergency? We only have coverage by medical personnel from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I asked Joe what it would cost to increase that, because that's one of our biggest. I'm in the risk management business. I can tell you that one of the things that really bothers me is the medical situation. Because whenever you're open for a lawsuit, we just write the check. We have to. There's no way out of it. So I really think that I don't know what services we have to cut. But we just, in my opinion, I would just ask people to perform a little better, more, make it more feasible for us to justify their existence. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Kirk. Mick, your question?
As far as cutting any services, I don't think anybody would want to do that right away. You can minimize them. You can possibly make it to where I just think it more. You just as you go through each organization, each entity, you just say that whether they could cut something here and there. Agriculture is in such a tough way right now, and it's going to get. It doesn't seem to be getting really any better right away. So for right now, we're going to have to try to minimize the amount of services, I guess, that we end up having for the county. So I think that's the only thing you can do, is you can just keep trying to watch it as it goes and try to make the decisions the best you can for what it is. The detention center, it really is a kind of a problem. It was supposed to make the county some money, and it's been nothing but a money pit since then. I don't know if there's things that could be changed there. I don't know. It sounds like the crime in this area is getting worse, so therefore the detention center is more needed, and we have to actually ship some of the people out of the area, and we have to pay for that. So I don't know. I think we're going to have to really look at that part of it and say, what can we do about this, if we can do anything at all?
Okay, now we're going to start with Kirk for this next question. And this one is, many of our roads and bridges are in need of repairs and upgrading, especially many of the bridges. What are your plans and what are your thoughts on financing these repairs and upgrading?
Well, I recently moved east of Gering, and I have one of the worst roads. I expect it to stay that way, because if I make commissioner, I don't want any favoritism. But, taxes are something that we got to have the revenue. We can't keep hitting property tax. I'm going to say this, it's probably going to offend a lot of people, but a sales tax, even the state wanted to do a sales tax. Excuse me, sales tax, one of the fairest taxes there is. The more you spend, the more you're going to pay. And all the states around Nebraska have what they call a county sales tax. It incorporates all the municipalities, everybody in there. I did a study. If we did Gering and Scottsville, if we could develop $6 to $7 million in revenue at 1 cent. Now, that's not to say it's going to work, because the state's going to try and mandate that we can't. But anyway, based on that issue, we could come, and I'm not opposed to a sales tax in the sense, but I want it earmarked. For roads, I know it's going to cost $5 to $7 million a year. If we could cover that every year with the sales tax revenue, and only that, I would be in favor of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kirk. Mick, your question?
As far as sales tax, the county can't assess a sales tax, so you can't go down that road. You know, we deal with that all the time. I live in the rural area. We have multiple farms that we have to get to. We've had bridges that's been out for 2, 3 years, 4 years, that we can't get to our farms. We have to go around to get to it. It's a real problem. Now, whether maybe we can find some federal funding. I think they're trying to do everything they can. Maybe there's some other ways to do it, but and also, you know, all these roads in the rural area are farm to market, and also there's a lot of people live in that community that need to get to town as well. So these roads are really important to keep them up. The oil road was talked about, of eliminating the oil roads and just go back to dirt on them. But the problem is it's such a different world in the farming community today than it was 50 years ago, when you had a truck that might weigh 10,000 pounds driving down these roads. Now you've got trucks that's weighing 100, like mine, when I come out of the beet field, I'm weighing 117,000 pounds. If you want to meet me on a dirt road with that big truck, with a 5,000 pound car, who's going to lose that battle? Now, the roads get wet and you have all kinds of trouble. So we really got to figure out a way to get these roads back into better shape, or we're going to really have a terrible time with trying to get people from the rural area to town, and also the commodities.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Mark?
Roads and bridges is always a tough one. Linda Grummert, she's our head of road department, and she's doing a pretty good job. She's starting to implement getting some crushed rock from Guernsey on some of these roads, especially the sandy roads where they seem to blow out. And she's just started that plan, and things have been working. It's been getting better. I mean, but to bring crushed rock from Guernsey is an expensive item. So we're trying to work some of that into our budget. And like I said before, by the time you get done paying all the mandates, we don't have a whole lot of money for discretionary funds, and roads departments takes a beating on that. Another thing about the bridges, we got 810 bridges in Scottsbluff County, and most of them are in bad shape. But it takes a lot of money to build a bridge. The state tells us how to build a bridge, and when you're using state money, they're going to build a good one, and it's going to be a very expensive bridge. So we've been getting some money for that, and Linda, if she's here tonight, she could explain to you how she's actually implemented an idea to she's gathered like 5 counties together to work with them to be able to buy culverts and bridge material at a cheaper rate, and with the state, and along with the state, that we were able to gain about $200,000. And that's the things that we're trying to do. That's what the things we are doing right now. So we are working on the roads and bridges, but we got a lot of bridges and we got a lot of roads. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. The next question, I believe we have time for one more question here before we go to closing comments, is going to be Mick, we will start with. And this question is, we have a juvenile detention problem in our county. Would you be in favor of a regional juvenile detention center, or continue with the current program being used with Laramie County, Wyoming?
Well, it'd be better if we did it ourselves. We'd have better control of it. To take a prisoner and move it from one county to the next county, it costs quite a bit of money to do so. that detention center is a real problem, and this area is getting to be a real problem about the crime. We don't see it maybe not all the time, but you listen to the sheriffs and a lot of the police officers, they'll tell you how much trouble is out in this country. And there's a lot of things in the rural area that become a problem. When the Planning Commission, when we looked at how the housing for the outside area, one thing we made sure that we eliminated as best we could is trailer houses. Well, that was just a mecca for seemed like a drug relation there. But so we try to do it that way. The counties, I don't know how they're going to do this. They're going to have to try to get this crime under control, or else this area is going to have a lot of trouble. I think maybe if anything, we can maybe help the law enforcement. I mean, all of us can pitch in and try to help, and if we see something going on, maybe we ought to report to them, and it's getting to be a real problem, and of course law enforcement will tell you that.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Mark, your question?
The detention center, there's a lot of talk about that, how it's a money pit. Well, it really isn't. Actually, this past month here, we've got some good news that detention center is going to be able to pay back some of the loan that it's used. And so we're making some money with that. The crime is horrific in this county. It's basically drugs. It's mostly drugs. And it's sad to say, but you go over there and you see them young people in there because they've got some type of drug infraction, and they're just wasting their lives. If you want to take it back farther, it's the degradation of the family, if you want to go that far back. And these kids, they need a role model. They need someone to show them that you got to go to work and not to be playing with these drugs, and then therefore getting put into a detention center. The juvenile part, we had just signed a contract with Laramie County, which is helping us a bunch because we were taking them kids down to Kearney and Omaha, which was costing us a lot of money. In fact, there was one time there we were spending up to $900 a day. Now that's a lot of money, $900 a day to hold these juveniles. So and that's why we built onto the jail, and that's why we didn't have to go to the taxpayer looking for a tax asking, because that $900 a day we were spending there was going to go to spill that jail. So we didn't have to go to the taxpayer to ask for more taxes. So I'm actually kind of proud of that jail. We're doing a pretty good job there. Granted, the crime is terrible, and I don't see it getting any better. But if people would just guide these kids, help them guide them, get involved, and try to guide these kids so they don't get into trouble, we wouldn't have to build these jails. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Kirk, your question?
It's my understanding the reason that we had to put on a juvenile section, so to speak, we never could fill it. So it was decided to move the kids out. Anyway, anytime you build something, as we all know, I've done it and everyone else has, the minute you put the last bit of paint on it, the maintenance starts. You have to maintain it. And there's nothing free. I don't care if it's a grant, whatever, nothing's free. Because you have to look at Sydney. They're going to give that building away, so to speak, $1 rent. But who's going to pay the taxes? Who's going to pay the maintenance? And so anytime you put bricks and mortar together, you have a maintenance issue, and we need to be aware of that. It's very important to me that in the future, as a commissioner, we watch all the bricks and mortars, try and deter away from it. As far as crime and the detention center and the kids, I think that education is a real important part of that. But we have a school district that did away with the after-school program. Scottsbluff just got $170,000 in their after-school program. We need that to corral these kids, keep them as much, My daughter teaches school in rural Colorado, and she said there's kids that hate Christmas break because they don't get to eat. They're home with their parents, no food, no. So anyway, as far as the detention center and the kids, I'm not sure what we do. Thank you.
Okay. That concludes our question session for this, and now we're going to end with closing comments where you'll have another minute and a half or 90 seconds, and we're going to start with Mark for your closing comments. Any final thoughts you want to give us?
Been born and raised here in Scottsbluff. Got married here in Scottsbluff, raised a family here in Scottsbluff, all my friends in Scottsbluff County. And this is my home. And like anybody, you want to make your home a little better. That's why I'm running for re-election. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Now, Kirk.
Actually, I'm very fortunate to have lived in Colorado and saw the boom and bust in Colorado. I remember the Silverado collapse in the 80s. Real estate markets collapsed. They may again. But at least I had some idea of how it works. I lived in a resort area near a ski area in Granby, Colorado, Winter Park ski area. I got to see the growth and the things that happen and why. And I'm glad I did venture out there. I came back here 20 years ago. I've been married to my lovely wife for 23 years. She's been very fortunate to have me, I'm sure. You know, when I met her, she's an old classmate, well, a couple years younger. I said, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, luckiest person in the world. I really thought of it. I said, no, she's the luckiest person in the world. Anyway, I'd like to be a commissioner. I have 35 years. Every penny I ever had in my bank account I had to earn, every penny of it. Being in the insurance business and, you know, thick skin, people say, why do you want to be a commissioner? Well, let me tell you. I'm in the business where all we do is collect premiums and never pay claims. That's the toughest business you can be in. That's a lot more adventurous than being a commissioner, but I'd like to be your commissioner. Looking for your vote on the 15th of May, and I would certainly like to serve. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kirk. Now, Mick, you get the final word here for your closing thoughts.
Well, again, this is a farm community. I think that it needs to have an active farmer sitting on this board, so there's a voice on this board for agriculture. I'd like to be that voice. We're plenty busy in our operation, but I feel that it's important. Again, I've been on the Scottsbluff County Planning Commission for 15 years, and so I understand the rules and regulations of the area because I helped make those rules. And I just think that things need to be changed a little bit. I know that you can't do everything. I know you can't change it 100% because there's too many state and federal mandates. But I think you just go as you can through the process and try to cut the costs when you can. And the county's got a lot of good employees. You can't just throw them all out because it's cost, and you got to give them a raise just like anybody else within the private sector. But you know, there's going to be some big decisions made here real soon because it's getting to the point where agriculture, you know, is not doing real well right now, and hopefully it comes back. It runs in cycles. I've seen them. I've been in farming for 37 years, and there's always cycles, but this one's a pretty tough one, hurting a lot of people. We're losing a lot of good farmers. We need to make it to where there's a chance for the kids that's being raised on these farms can stay, and trying to keep the costs down is what one thing will do. But thank you anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you to the three of you. Let's show our appreciation to these three candidates. Okay, we're going to begin again. And we have two different districts that will be represented on this one. This will be District 3 and District 5. We have three candidates running for District 3. It is Sherry Blaha, Jerry Crable, did I say it? Crable, Charlie Knapper, and in District 5, Mark Masterton and Mark Harris. So we welcome them. We will start once again, like we have done in the other two rounds this evening. We will start with an opening comment from each of the candidates, and then we will go directly into questions. So Sherry, I'm going to let you start off with your opening comments. Yep, it is on.
Good evening. I am Sherry Blaha, and I have represented the people of Gering District 3 for the past 8 years, and I need your vote to continue. I want to thank the Scottsbluff County Farm Bureau for sponsoring this forum. My father, who was once editor of the Star Herald, was also public relations director for the Nebraska Farm Bureau Federation. He was in that position for 13 years before his retirement, and he had the privilege of growing up on a farm. Prior to being a county board member, I was the county emergency manager for nearly 25 years. I have devoted the majority of my adult life to this county. I presently serve on 4 boards that meet monthly, those being the Housing Authority, Region 1 Behavioral Health Authority. I am chairman of the Aging Office of Western Nebraska, and I'm also on the Tourism Board. 2 of these boards have a county commissioner from each of the 11 counties in the Panhandle. Knowing other commissioners and their issues helps in solving problems. I have also been appointed by the governor to serve as a member of the State Emergency Response Commission, and I am a lifetime member of the Nebraska Association of Emergency Managers. I am the only female serving on Scottsbluff County Board of Commissioners for the past 8 years. I am definitely not one of the boys, although we do get along respectfully well. I have the time, the incentive, the experience, the drive, and the desire to continue to serve the people of Scottsbluff County. I need your vote to continue my service, although I realize several of you can't vote for me because you're all out in the county, so. But I will try to make you happy too.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry. Jerry?
Well, I appreciate your vote right up front because I'm the one that does the budgets and stuff currently, have for 12 years for Scottsbluff County, for better or for worse. I know how a county runs. I know what to expect. I was born and raised in the valley at Hague, actually, and raised on a farm, know what hard work is. I know some of you are from farms and everything. My brother passed away a couple years ago, but he farmed for over 50 years, and I got other relations that farm. But basically, what I wanted to say is I've lived in the valley all my life. I've lived in Gering for 41 years, been married 46 years. To one wife, and appreciate her for sticking it out with me. And I see there's quite a few people in here I do know, and it's being a county commissioner is not an easy job, as the 2 incumbents will tell you. But I am fully capable and willing to take on that responsibility. I'm going to retire from working for Scottsbluff County at the end of this year, and I will have more than enough time to delve in and get things corrected.
Thank you, Jerry. Charlie?
I'm Charlie Knapper, and I'm running for County Commissioner in District 3 because some friends and some business people in the community have encouraged me to do so based on my conservative values, my energy and passion for growth in Scottsbluff County. Some of the current issues that are important to me right now are the fact that our juveniles are being shipped so far away for detention. I think they have a better chance of rehabilitation here if they were in the county close to their families. I'm up against some stiff competition. Both Sherry and Jerry have years, decades of experience. However, I'm the only candidate that offers a fresh set of eyes on some of the issues. So I would appreciate your vote May 15th.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, Mark Masterton for District 5.
Good evening. My name is Mark Masterton, obviously, and I've been a commissioner. I first got elected in 1982, so as opposed to Charlie, I have no fresh ideas. But I do have some accomplishments that I think have been noticed throughout the county. I was instrumental, I guess, in starting the communications center for Scottsbluff. Second of all, I think that the airport was a big accomplishment in that myself, and I know Mike Marker's here, a past commissioner, and he was a great assistance in that. We did get the jail built, and we did build the county communications system, whereby not only do we do we keep track of people's computers and desktop, but also the IT system now runs the jail, it runs the locks, it runs the video conferencing, it runs video arraignment from the jail to the courthouse. So those are some of the accomplishments, and those were new, fresh ideas when they started. We've still got some more ideas that we need to work on. Charlie's absolutely right. I want to stick around and see something happen with our juvenile problem. We used to have a juvenile facility in Scottsbluff, but the state decided that they didn't want to fund it anymore, and we figured rather than sending prisoners out to Lexington and other areas throughout the whole state, that we would spend the money and build a facility right here. We're in that process right now, and one of the reasons I'm running is to see that that gets done, and second of all, to make sure that the jail we have right now, the remodel is completed. So that's who I am, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Now, Mark Harris.
All right, I'm Mark Harris, running for District 5. I think it's important to point out that District 5 is the east half of the city of Scottsbluff. And so, quite honestly, we have very little farm ground, if any, in our district. Almost all of them would be residents of the city of Scottsbluff. But just because we don't have farm ground in our district, we certainly recognize the importance of the ag, the farm, the ranch community, and what it means to our economy, and that it's the lifeblood of what we do in Nebraska, it's the lifeblood of what we do in this county, and it's the lifeblood of all of us personally have some kind of tie to agriculture if we live here. Certainly I want to say thanks to the Farm Bureau for putting this on, and Andy and Shannon and all of their organization that helped sponsor this. I think a couple things that you should probably know about me, and that's that I was born in 1957 here in Scottsbluff. My parents lived in Baird. We moved away from the area shortly after that, came back to the area, to the Baird area in 1971. We were talking out in the hallway that Mark's wife, Susan, I knew her as Miss Susan Leaf Green at the time. She was my teacher in high school and in Baird. But in any event, I went to high school in Baird, then moved to Scottsbluff, and have lived here since 1978. So been a resident of the Valley for 40 years, along with my wife, Joanne. And we have 3 sons that grew up here, and still 2 of them live here. I've worked for A&L Construction, A&L Incorporated, for the last 40 years, and so I've done the same basic things for a long time in this area. So that's a little bit about me and our district, and so I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Now we're going to start our questions, and we're going to start with Jerry. He gets to respond to the first question here. And this one is on property taxes. We all know that property taxes are high. How do you propose you balance the needs of the services the county provides while still allowing for lowering property taxes?
Well,
yeah, just talk close to it. You should be good.
yeah, the thing about counties and property taxes that it's 25% of our revenue. We don't have hardly any revenue streams like cities. Cities has sales tax, and we don't have the ability to charge sales tax, and maybe we should. Beginning of this budget year, we got requests from the departments, and we had to cut $4.2 million from the requests. so that we could get down to legal, which legal for the counties is if you have interlocal agreements is 50 cents, but we're allowed to charge 45, and what we usually wind up with is 41, 42, once in a while 43, because you got the airport, and you have Ag Society, all rural fires, all rural cemeteries, and the 3 drain ditches that are in the county, Mitchell, Morrill, and Menatare. So those all come off of our the maximum 50 cents. So usually there isn't much room because, as you know, every department in Scottsbluff County usually gets cut to some degree, and I'm sorry to say that roads is one of those. So.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Charlie?
As Jerry said, only about 25% of your property tax goes to county services. So if we as commissioners were to cut your taxes, you wouldn't see much of a difference. There's a lot of other entities that levy against your property. So my solution for property tax relief is to bring new industry to Scottsbluff County. The Panhandle is primed for new industry. Something like a data center would be ideal here. We have a fiber infrastructure that's second to none, really, in the nation. The fiber is already in the ground. We need to be enticing companies to come here, build data centers, build technology centers. Kearney, Grand Island, Hastings, these towns have been finalists for these types of data centers from PayPal and Amazon and Yahoo. Ultimately, these companies chose to go to Des Moines, Iowa, because they had the fiber in the ground and they were going to allow these companies to build their own solar and wind power to power these data centers. Papillion, Nebraska is building a $100 million data center right now. If you can imagine what a $100 million data center would do to our property tax base, that would provide some relief.
Thank you, Charlie. Now, Mark Masterton.
Well, the question is really where your tax money goes. For every dollar you spend on your property taxes, be it commercial, residential, or whatever, about 20 to 25%, depending upon the year, as these gentlemen have pointed out, goes to Scottsbluff County. Over 70% goes to schools. The rest of it's divided up into NRDs. It's divided into sanitary sewer districts. It's special paving districts, different areas, and the college is part of that, and the airport's part of that. So when we say, well, we've got to cut the budget, it's interesting that the county is like 20%, and the other entities represent 80%. So, like it's been said, if we cut the county budget, which we have, there's areas within the county that are definitely able to cut, but the problem is just like you have with your own budget in your own home, is there's a finite amount of money, then we have to figure out where we want to spend it the best way. Certainly roads are part of it, jails are mandated, some things are optional, but we try and put off the optional things as long as we possibly can. But to cut the budget and say, I'm going to run on the fact that I'm going to cut how much the county spends, it's almost an impossible task because we only control 20% of it.
Thank you. And now Mark Harris, your question.
I was pleased when the question came up because it's one of the things that I really wanted to talk about tonight. And as you hear me talk about all of the rest of the answers, probably, it'll be centered around the basic premise that our property tax is too high. I have information from the Nebraska Department of Revenue that says that our overall tax rate, and in this I'm including the schools, the county, all taxing entities, we're the third highest in the state. Only two other counties, and they're both Douglas and Sarpy counties, are more than us, and there's only 3 counties in the state where the average tax rate is 2% or higher, and ours has been for a long time. And then we might say, well, yeah, but we're talking about the county tonight. And so when we talk about the county and we pull that out from the Nebraska Department of Revenue, we also rank 3rd highest in the state. And frankly, that's not good enough for me. And my intent would be for that to be lower if I get elected. And I don't know that it'll be able to be lower immediately, but over time, I'm of the belief that those rates can be taken down. And we can have some direct responsibility with the county levy, and hopefully some indirect influence, at least, on some of the other. And that would be the premise of why I'm here.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Now Sherry, and there's a microphone in the middle. You can pass that down to her. Same question for you.
Okay, so I kind of anticipated that this question might be asked, and so I have a chart in front of me that shows that 63% of your tax dollar goes to schools. To realize any meaningful reduction in property tax, we need to find another way to support our schools. The existing method of tax appraisal is dictated by the state statutes and apply the same throughout the state. I believe that there are many differences in the factors used to determine property values from the east to the west end of the state that are not fairly taken into account. I would like to see a review of these differences. The County Board of Equalization needs more flexibility to make decisions during property tax hearings than is allowed by the state statute. The state cannot continue to pass down more programs without financing the cost. No more unfunded mandates. We need to take a critical look at all the existing state mandated programs which are being financed by the county. We need to reevaluate the benefits and see if changes either in the program and or method of financing can be made.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry. Now our next question, we're going to start with Charlie. Okay. And this question is kind of a follow-up question to the first one, but it is, what services specifically that the county provides could be cut back or eliminated to help reduce the property tax burden?
Well, this is a tough one. Scottsbluff County's been run very conservatively. There's not a whole lot of services that I would cut. I know the handy bus is very popular, and 80% of the funding for that comes from the federal government, but we're still spending county tax money to run that. And I haven't seen the numbers of how many people are riding. There's room for private industry to come in and take care of those services. Uber and Lyft have taken off in other cities. Those are some services that could be allocated or let private industry do those. I do know that from 2013 to 2018, the tax receipts for the county have increased 22%, while our cash on hand has increased 40%. That's to say that in 2013, there was a $3.1 million cash reserve, and in 2018, we started the year with nearly $11 million in cash reserve. Why we're building the cash reserve, I'm unsure. I'm not sure if maybe that's where we could find some relief.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie. And now Mark Masterton, your question.
Well, first of all, I think we ought to cut the treasurer's office and the register of deeds office. The only reason I say that is because the lady's running it right here. Just kidding. Actually, the solution is not necessarily cutting. We have cut in the past. Our road department, for instance, is down 28%, which is not good, but we're getting more efficient and we're getting bigger equipment to make it work better. But the solution is cooperation between the County of Scottsbluff, the City of Scottsbluff, City of Gering, and all the rest of the communities that are within the Scottsbluff. To actually cut right now is almost, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's going to be very, very, very difficult to cut programs that we already have, because most of them are mandated. Most of the programs that we have right now are mandated by the state. The state says you will do this, you will do that. As a matter of fact, I just got the article out of the newspaper about what the state legislature just made us do, and a lot of the things that we think are unnecessary, the state says, oh no, we have to do it. We are in fact an extension of state government. So to actually say, well, I'm going to cut this and I'm going to cut that, you have unintended consequences when you do that. The best thing that we can do is cooperate, work together, and try and make everything less expensive if we combine our services, and we really need to do that for our very survival of the smaller communities. And quite frankly, Scottsbluff, Gering, and the county are relatively small in the great scheme of things. So cooperation is the answer.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And now Mark Harris, your question.
Well, this is another area, again, that I think I need to be involved with, and I think it's another area where we start to look at a fresh set of eyes, a fresh set of ears. What are we doing now? Again, if we're the third highest rates in the state, then obviously there's 90 other counties out there that ought to have some kind of thoughts and examples of how we can save money. One of the first ones I would start with has to go back to the raise that the county commissioners have given themselves. Now, keep in mind that it's not effective until till 2019, January of 2019. But simply put, it was a 38% increase. And to me, that's inappropriate. In fact, I would suggest, if I was elected, that we would roll that back to what it was before. Their current pay for county commissioners is $17,958 a year. The new rate's going to go to $24,893. I think the state legislature had wisdom when they said you have to set that amount of money and then go through an election. And several of these people are doing that now. And it may be the demise of part of them on the board now because of it. But the chairman, he gets $19,754 now. In 19, it would go up to $27,382. The big thing to all of that is that, and that's not all. State statute requires the commissioners, I guess requires, that they also get all the benefits of a county employee. And so that's on top of it. And quite frankly, that's one place that we can start to cut.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Now, Sherry, your question.
I think I'm going to be the only one that can address that. First of all, we are mandated by the state of Nebraska to review the elected official salaries every 4 years. At the time that this came to us, Mark, well, I shouldn't mention names, sorry. It was stated that they really had not raised the salaries for a very long time. And considering the fact that Scottsbluff County is about the 5th largest county in the state of Nebraska, and we were lowest in the array of counties listed, and so we took that comparison. My phone just went dead. I was going to run again anyway, and so it didn't really matter to me if we got the raise or not. I just kind of wonder if some of the newer candidates aren't taking advantage of the circumstance of the raise, and that maybe perhaps could be their interest in it. I don't know, but I'm trying to defend myself. But I, regardless, will continue to do a good job. I don't know. Oh, my time is up. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry. Okay, Jerry, pass the mic down to Jerry. Your question.
Here's the timer.
You start the timer now? Anyway, where do we want to cut? Well, what we've done in the past is set up some interlocals, like, for instance, the emergency management interlocal with all the entities in the county, which share in some of the costs of very expensive communication equipment, and they just purchased the software and whatnot for the database for all the police and rescue and fire to use, which was, I think, $567,000, and Scottsbluff shared in that with all the other entities in the county. Based on population, and the county population is 8,500 about, and so that formula was worked out a few years ago, and we've been saving the money. It took I think 4 years to save up enough with all of us contributing. And what services do you want to cut? Well, I don't think you want to cut Handybus, because 80% of that is federal and 10% of that is state, so the county's on the hook for 10%. There are a few little things that we could make it more efficient, which I would work on for that, but just for a real quick information, we did some financial stuff for a presentation one time, and they asked me to figure out what it costs to arrest, try, defend, and house inmates, including all of the departments that's involved in that. And out of a $45 million budget, it was $13 million. And so we have a very high crime rate.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, we're going to start with Mark Masterton. And this question is, many of our roads and bridges are in need of repairs and upgrading, especially many of our bridges. What is your plan, and how do you propose that we finance the repairs and upgrading?
I think that probably the best way to upgrade our roads is to spend more money. It goes back to the concept that we have a finite amount of money and we've got many things to run, just like you do in your personal budgets. The road department has been neglected, agreed, because there have been other priorities that we had to deal with. One idea that I heard today was, it gets down to building roads. If you build it with round gravel like we have out here, the roads roll away fast. And the motor graders go out there and it's like pushing marbles around. The roads do not stay together. So what was proposed was that we would get a hold of Burlington Northern Railroad, and we would get that rock out of Wyoming that has got sharp edges to it, and is irregular in shape. And you can take that, let the railroad bring it to us, we'll buy in bulk, and then we can build our roads better, and then they'll last longer. So the secret to better roads is better materials and building them so that they last.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Now Mark Harris.
Well, I agree that it may take some additional spending to get things back in order, I think, and in better condition. Many years ago, when I lived in Morrill County and we crossed the county from Morrill County into Scottsbluff County roads were superior to what the roads were in Morrill County. Not to knock them, but that's just the facts. And today, I had a call a couple weeks ago from a resident that lives out south and east, and they said, yeah, but that's not the way it is today. Some farmers and ranching people have concerns about moving their commodities into town, or have a concern about moving their own livestock or whatever around, and certainly those items are going to have to be addressed soon, and we can't let the roads get in such disrepair that we affect commerce, whether it be farm, ranch, or any other commerce. And so it would be my intent to look at, again, expanding the tax base, economic development, which does that, and then using those extra funds to help build better roads and take care of bridges.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Sherry, your question. You can pass the...
Okay. I have some statistics that I'd like to run past you all. And I do agree that good roads are good for tourism, agricultural, and the economy. There are 972 roads in Scottsbluff County. 162 of them are asphalt, and 810 of them are gravel. They all need some repairs. There are 225 bridges. 24 are underfoot, 20 foot, and 201 are over 20 foot. There are 1,210 culverts. One of the topics of consideration always comes up is the Stegall Road on the west end of the county. It is 12 miles long. An estimate from our road superintendent gives us the figure of $7.5 million to repair that road. It is on the plan, but it's kind of far down on the plan. It costs $2,200 per mile to gravel a road, and that is 50% product and 50% labor and truck. So you can see it's very expensive. We have many other departments also who are equally as important as our road department. If I get a chance, I'll name them to you.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry. Now, Jerry, your response.
Well, yeah, there's the roads and bridges are always to top of the list for discussion, especially during budget time. And like I said earlier, a lot of departments, all the departments take some kind of cut to them because of their requests are generally pretty high. But you got bridges that cost $300,000 and more to replace, and you've got culverts, like I said, 1,200 and some culverts that, if you have to replace one, they're about $10,000 parts and labor. And the roads maybe back in 40 years ago or something were pretty good in Scottsbluff County, which they were. But I also drove Morrill County roads because I lived there for 10 years. But the thing is, all counties are suffering also from bigger machinery, bigger trucks, and that kind of thing, and that's pretty hard on county roads, and it's just the way the farming has come, and it's the way the roads start to deteriorate quicker. The other thing is we try to, we get federal money, you know, for roads based on gasoline, which is all that nice formula that they use. But we also used to be able to do grants from the federal, and the state would kick in some money. But the state thought it would be better served if they doled out the money. And so they didn't give out any money for 3 years, and now they give us $150,000 a year for roads, and they give us $200,000 a year for bridges. So it's Big Brother again. Sorry, Steve.
Okay. Thank you. Jerry, now Charlie, your question.
So one of the main jobs government is to bring you to town safely. We need safe roads. We need safe bridges. Now the county, Scottsbluff County Department of Roads has asked for X amount of dollars every year, and the commissioners have neglected to give them the amount of money that they've asked for, while increasing their cash on hand. The cash is there to spend on the roads. Lake Minnetonka Road, Sugar Factory Road going north of town was paid for with a bond issue, while we increased cash on hand. The bond issue is a 15-year bond issue. By the time the bond is paid off, the road will have deteriorated to the point where it needs to be resurfaced again. We need better roads. We need better management of the roads. I think all my everybody up here got their numbers from the same person, because I did a lot of research myself. I do know that we're buying gravel from local companies. That's important because of the cost to transport the gravel. We get to do business locally. Western Materials does sell a 3/8 inch rock that we can use as road base, which is the same size of the rock. It's not as angular as the rock Masterton was talking about, but there's money in the bank to make the road safe. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Now we're going to do one final question before we go to closing comments, but this one is going to Mark Harris, and this question is: we have a juvenile detention problem in our county. Would you be in favor of a regional juvenile detention center, or would you like to see us continue with the current program being used where we share it with Laramie County, Wyoming?
Well, I think the simple question or answer to that question is that our preference would be to have it locally. The question then becomes, well, what does it cost in comparison to what we're trying to do now? I certainly have a police officer in the last month that said, you know, it's difficult for us to arrest somebody that's a juvenile, and then we really don't have a good place to take them. The expenses to take them to another facility is expensive, and then he said in one case we're hauling them back and forth 3 times over a 10-day period. And he said it makes no sense to do that. So I think we have to look at the option of housing them here. Then they can go to their court appearances. Their families will be closer here to hopefully help be supportive. But I don't want there to be any illusions, and it was mentioned already that being tough on crime, which I want to be, is expensive. And our sheriff's budget, our detention center budget, those are all expensive propositions. And so we have to work on a couple things. Number one is the paying for it and expanding the tax base and things like that. But more importantly, what can we do to maybe lower the crime rate? Is there things we can be doing in the family situation? Our families have deteriorated to a point where we have parents that are on drugs trying to raise kids that are going to be on drugs. And somehow we got to solve that.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Sherry, your question.
We have struggled with this situation for quite a long time now. It would be great to have the juveniles be closer to their family. However, I believe one figure that hit me before we did close the juvenile down was it was costing us $2,000 to $3,000 per day to house a juvenile. And that's the reason we took that 30-bed area. There were only 3 juveniles in it at the time. You can't afford to run a jail that way. We cannot put juveniles and adults together. State statutes actually are horrific. Jail standards are a major cost in housing juveniles. I don't know what the solution is. Transporting them closer, which is in Wyoming, Cheyenne, and perhaps Casper in the near future will be helpful because we won't have to send them so far away. The parents can go and visit. I would like to see a solution to this at some point in time, but just keep in mind that it is very costly. So just keep your kids good. Okay.
Thank you, Sherry. Jerry.
Well, about that time, a couple of years ago, the juveniles were under HHS care, and then the state, sorry, Steve, thought it would be great to have them under probation, and probation's philosophy was to train their parents to be better parents and to not lock them in a detention center. So we went from having 28 or so in there down to 2 or 3. And you have quite a few corrections officers watching 2 or 3 kids. And so that's the reason it was changed. Plus, we were spending $400,000 a year for sending adults other places, Lexington and whatnot. But there, as far as I've heard, there's a movement to have a regional juvenile center, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in Scottsbluff or Gering, because I've heard locations like Alliance or at least Box Butte County, and that would be great. That's a lot closer, and so I think that's still being worked on. Finding a facility that would work to be able to appease jail standards is not easy, so I know it's being worked on. So.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Charlie, your question?
So this is a major issue that I've talked to people when I go door to door campaigning. Scottsbluff County needs to step up to the plate to rehabilitate the juveniles. They are our responsibility. They're not Madison County's responsibility. They are not Cheyenne, Wyoming's responsibility. They're not Casper, Wyoming's responsibility. They're our responsibility. We can leverage interlocal agreements, like Jerry was talking about, to build a regional juvenile facility, to help offset the costs, and we can help keep other kids in the Panhandle for rehabilitation. I can't imagine what it does to the children's morale when they're banished from their communities, shipped 400 miles away. They stand a better chance at rehabilitation if they're here with their families, and they are our responsibility.
Okay. Now to Mark.
You know, none of these questions can be answered in 2 minutes. Juvenile situation is very, very, very complicated. The state treats juveniles and adult criminals in a much different manner. Just to give you an idea, it costs us about $70 a day to take care of an adult. It costs us $245 a day to take care of juveniles. So when we closed the juvenile about 2 years ago in June, we had 28 inmates in the juvenile facility. It holds 32. When we decided to close it, we had 2 inmates in the juvenile section, and 26 beds were going to waste. So we decided that it was probably better as a temporary stopgap measure to put adults, trying to save taxpayer dollars, to put adults in that juvenile facility that we had. We ended up putting women in there. And I might add, too, that we planned on about 8% women when we built the new jail, and we're running about 26, 27% women. So obviously they have to be separated, too. Most of the problem is drugs. The problem with juveniles is mostly drugs. And when my worthy opponent says that, well, we've got to do something about juveniles, well, you know, that's the obvious answer. But when you get down to specifics and say, who's going to do what about juveniles, then that becomes another problem. I do agree with the fact that we need to regionalize, and I said that earlier in my statements, where we have to cooperate. We've got to cooperate with the city of Scottsbluff, the city of Gering, and in the case of juveniles, we need to cooperate with the entire Panhandle. As a matter of fact, I've been to a number of meetings where we are actually starting the juvenile process.
Okay, time's up. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go to our closing statements, and we're going to start with Sherry. Keep the order going. So you will have a minute and a half for your closing comments.
Earlier, I said that I would read you a list of the departments that the county is responsible for. There are 12 departments that are appointed with appointed officials, and there are 10 with elected officials. The appointed ones are planning and zoning, information systems, the management accountant, personnel, maintenance, veterans administration, transportation, mapping, road and bridge, tourism, weed, communications, and the detention center. The elected offices are the county clerk, the county treasurer, the register of deeds, the county assessor, clerk of the district court, public defender, sheriff, attorney, surveyor, which is part-time, and the commissioners. So you will know the cost of running county government is not cheap. I thank you all for being here tonight. Thanks again to the Farm Bureau for sponsoring this. And if you can vote for me, I would sure appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry. Jerry.
Okay, I'd like to clear up one thing. First of all, the cash reserve that we have is not built up. It's whatever falls at the end of June 30th. We try to keep 9 to 10 million, and that is 3 months worth of expenses. That's what any prudent business person would do. It's also recommended by the state auditor's office that you keep 3 months worth. As far as departments, there's 27 departments, 69 budgets, and of course a lot of those are grant funded, and we utilize probably $3 million in grants. We get about $30 million in fees. The fees are dictated by the state legislature on what we can charge and what the amount we can charge. And so it's, when Mark said that we're a subsidiary of the state, he's not kidding. We're a subset of the state, and they tell us basically what we can and can't do. And cities have more flexibility. I would like to see us push for, and they've brought it up a couple times about the counties being able to charge a sales tax. And that would be more fair than just property tax, because not all property tax owners have kids in school or any of that kind of thing. But most people that buy commodities and that have kids in school, and they could help pay for some of the things we need, like infrastructure.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Charlie, your closing comments.
Okay, thanks everyone for being here again. Everyone at this table, everyone in this room understands that what's good for ag is what's good for Scottsbluff County. Everybody in this room, every citizen of Scottsbluff County is a stakeholder in ag, from the farmers and ranchers to the nurses at the hospital. We all need the ag industry to thrive. We need our roads to be safe. We cannot afford to have our roads be liabilities. I just also wanted to add that, you know, as a full-time employee with a day job, as someone who receives tremendous benefits from my employer, I don't intend on taking all of the benefits that are afforded to county employees. I think that'll help. It would be a small help to the budget, but it would be something. I also wanted to speak on the recent developments at the jail today. When we demote employees and give them additional work assignments, that is only going to create resentment towards their employers, is going to decrease morale and make for a very hard effort to retain employees. I believe in a human resources and human relations approach to management, and what is good for county employees is also what is good for the county.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie. Mark Masterson, your closing comments.
Well, I agree with a lot of things that have been said by the worthy candidates here, but I bring to the table quite a bit of experience on county government. Because I was first elected in 1982, and with a 10-year hiatus in there, I've been a commissioner ever since. The experience, I think, is invaluable. When Charlie talks about new, fresh ideas, I think that's really kind of a good thing. But it also needs to be tempered with some experience and some solid thinking and some what I call institutional memory about things that have worked and things that aren't going to work. And I would just add that when you vote, think about what's going to happen to the county and how it's going to carry on what we do, understanding we can do it better, but we could also do it worse. So I'm just of the position that we're going to lose an awful lot of talent at the beginning of the year, just staff people retiring, and I don't think we can afford to lose the experience that I bring to the table for County Commission.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Now, Mark Harris, your closing comments.
You know, someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, why am I running for Scottsbluff County Commissioner? And you know, I needed to go back and fully reflect on that, and simply put, I want to be able to give back to our community, our county, and you know, I've been blessed by the things that have been afforded to me and given to me from others that are from this county, and not only myself, but my family. I know the majority of us want to live in a community that's safe, one that's affordable, one that provides opportunities such as jobs, provides community, good friends, neighbors, family, businesses, churches, schools, education, and many other things. And I'm a believer in Scottsbluff County. I think it has lots and lots of those things, and I think we simply can expand upon that. I don't feel that many of these questions that have been asked puts us in such a dire straits that we can't be happy about the place that we live. And I think it's important to do that. I think we need to encourage economic development in our area so that things can be better for all of us. That'll help to lower tax rates. That'll help to put people to work in jobs that they can afford and to work at. And I just say that I want to work on making things better. And there's lots of things, and fortunately with my experience on the City Council of Scottsbluff and being mayor of Scottsbluff, I think I can bring some of those things to the table.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Let's show our appreciation for all of the candidates. And I do once again want to thank everyone for coming out this evening, listening to the views of the candidates. Before, there is one other announcement I would like to make. In the back of the room, many of you have heard about a property tax petition that is going around. There are petitions that if you are so inclined that you would like to sign, there are some in the back of the room that we would encourage you to do so if you would like. And Senator Erdman would not forgive me if I didn't mention that before had the opportunity to say that for all of you this evening. But once again, thank you for coming out this evening, getting to listen to the views of the candidates, and please remember to exercise your freedom. We live in a great country, and you have the right and responsibility to vote on May 15th, so please do that. Thank you so much.